So welcome back to the next edition.
Welcome back.
Can I just say hello and welcome? Because I feel like we're on it feels like we're going to read the news.
It does.
We've gone for a different location, haven't we? Well, same venue, different location to switch it up.
Very handsome newsreader.
Oh, thank you very much.
Leave the bell alone. It's only for gratuitous
I love the bell.
plugs.
I love the bell.
Yeah.
What are we going to talk about today?
Yeah.
So today on the agenda, and you'll be pleased to know I don't have any stats for either.
Oh, I feel like you're letting us down, Kelly.
Yeah, unfortunately.
She hasn't done her research.
I mean, what's the commitment to this session today, this broadcast? You turned up with no start. Well, no, there's one. I can see one.
We've got a little bit. But we're going to talk about AI and technology specifically in the HR world.
Yeah.
I am so strong on this subject.
And we've combined these together because we think they are quite dry and that the light that we're trying to bring could be dimmed slightly. So I think let's kick off really in terms of how difficult it is from a HR perspective to get the data that you need to do your job properly.
We've done it again, haven't we? I'm Jeanette Ramsden.
I'm Kelly.
I'm Jordan Barry-Bayliss.
Always wants a long
Or just like as many syllables in.
And where's Doug today?
Doug's on outside actually, sunbathing.
Okay, good.
He's got his priorities right.
Yes,
We're inside sweating
and
recording
in
instead.
a bit, yeah.
Yeah.
Very good. So, in the absence of Doug.
I've got quite an interesting point on this because I think I've had the privilege of working in organisations that have really used lots of data. And the way that, if I think about how much more sophisticated that's made us in terms of being able to preempt what our employees wanted, look at trends using algorithms, I've done that. But I think, unfortunately, I think a lot of organisations don't use data. So, I've also been in organisations where we've had a best-in-class HR system like Workday, for example. And then half the HR function have opted out and not used it because they couldn't.
So the adoption is not there.
If technology adoption is optional, then don't bother investing the money. It has to be, you have to be all in or all out. And I think there are organisations who are doing this brilliantly well, where they have so much quantitative and qualitative data that they... No, Doug, we're not having that. That's not what we want. Sorry about that.
He obviously disagrees
with that comment. Do not start barking. So, who are using this they can predict when certain employees are going to leave. They use it in such a sophisticated way. I mean, and I just wonder how much further forward are they than the rest. Like GSK, for example, is a prime example of an organisation who's all over this.
Yeah. And we do a lot of consultancy, particularly with that kind of medium-sized, mid-tier business.
Gratuitous plug.
Who just don't have access to basic things like salary information, levers, because they just have not been ever given the investment or have the knowledge necessarily to get the systems they've got to the point where they're getting the data they need from them. And I think it's a real challenge for people at the moment.
Yeah, and it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think
HR professionals particularly, because how can you be credible when you don't
data?
have the MI and data to be able to, give a compelling business case, which we're all criticised about all the time.
And it's about helping ourselves, isn't it?
But if I can't get the data, how can I do a compelling business case? And that requires investment and real concentration.
But then if you flip that narrative, I guess the question that's coming into my mind is, in the absence of not having data to make really well-informed people decisions, what are you making it on? So then we can only assume that a lot of organisations and leaders are using gut instinct and probably not any data at all.
And it's because it's not a primary operating system that businesses are just not as keen to invest. And we've been through our own tech evolution in the last 3 years. And it is our primary...
literally 3 years as well.
And it is our primary operating system because we're a HR and recruitment business. But actually, the investment it's taken is significant, isn't it?
But it's really interesting because for a lot of your clients, you're able to provide data that they just don't have access to. So you're set up to do that, which I think is really powerful.
Live reporting that they can...
I had a dream.
Oh God!
I had a dream.
She has a lot of
Is
dreams.
this like Martin Luther? I have a dream.
She gives me the dreams and she
I'll go to Kelly. This is what I'd like. I have no idea how to get to it, but this is what I'd like, and I would love a world where HR people can get all of their data in one place from all of their different areas and functions that they have to report on. So everything from learning development, EVP, administration, recruitment,
statistics,
just end to end.
Number of cases they're
at a
managing.
fingertips, because you know how many different priorities they have to deal with every day. Like you said, you walk in, no idea what you're going to tackle on that day. It is.
A bugger's muddle.
And when you're having to look at, literally, I went with one CPO the other day, and they had to look on 4 different systems to just get a list of salaries. I mean, that's just
and that's
crazy.
just ridiculous. Because let's be honest, finance won't be doing that, will they?
No.
And I know that, you know, also in organisations, finance systems can be behind the curve, but you can guarantee, because organisations more often than not are financially led and profit based, that they have all, you know, they have better access to the money and the numbers. But I think it's interesting as well, because we're talking about MI, and I think one of the things that I always made a conscious decision to do as a CPO when I was a CPO was making sure that we had a compelling dashboard that actually reported our performance over time. But what was really interesting for me, and I'm working with a particular client at the moment that springs to mind, where we are doing the same thing, and we've looked at, and that's a very data-led organisation actually, so it's been quite unique. But okay, so we've got so much data here. Let's sort the wheat from the chaff in terms of what do your client groups and your stakeholders want to see that will be helpful to enable them to make better decisions. However, when we looked at the whole value chain, I also made sure at the end of it that the people using it, which would ultimately be the business partners, were comfortable and confident to interpret that data. So whilst we had lots of data, what is it telling us? And how confident as an HR person are you to sit in front of a client group and say, well, actually, you know, your leaving stats in the first year, or your you know, your retention stats for the first year are X, which means we've got a problem here. It's that kind of stuff.
And you can have too much data. That's the other problem.
You can.
It
And I think that was
confuses
the
people
point
in
here.
terms of how they use it. And actually, if you're not analysts, right? So you've got to get the data set up that you actually need to be able to run the people strategy properly. And that's a hard task, actually, particularly when you're expected to do that on a side of your desk while you're doing all the other keys that we're talking about.
But I think if we're being really honest as well, I think there is a myth out there, or is it a fact, that HR people aren't very good at numbers? And I think one of the things...
Which isn't true.
No, and I think, but one of the things that I do talk about a lot is that, you know, it's really important for credibility that HR people are really comfortable with numbers. They understand the P&L, they do all of that stuff. They can talk in the same language as the business. Talk to us about the AI point. What's your stat? AI.
So I have some strong views on AI, particularly. There's so much. There's so much you can read and take from it at the moment, isn't it? It's one of those. It's a really big subject for a lot of people are talking about. But I think what's interesting is actually there's a lot of talk around it at the moment, but there's not many businesses that are particularly far forward on their AI strategies, and naturally don't even know how to tackle it and what it's going to look like. So there's lots of different things to think about in HR. You've got kind of the repurposing of roles, because obviously your roles are going to change and evolve as AI comes more clear. But also you've got what are you actually going to use it for within the business, and that's quite a big task.
That's the unknown quantity, isn't it? And I think there's obviously a lot of fear around it.
There is.
You know, are we going to lose our jobs completely? And I think we don't actually know how sophisticated AI are. I think the thing that really concerned me was the people that designed it then turned around and said to the world, we're really concerned about the capability. We need to stop. So I mean, but then everyone's ploughing full steam ahead into it. And I think it's interesting, one of my clients I'm working with in private equity, one of the capabilities that they asked me to look into building around their C-suite was their understanding in a... I did my own plug there.
I was just about to say, I was going to let you finish.
Understanding and affinity with AI as a leadership team. What does that mean for private equity? How would, you know, because that's a very unique kind of...
I found it jolly useful, and I think it's interesting.
Jolly useful. Did I just say the word jolly?
Jolly. Being dyslexic, having
let's do this.
ChatGPT.
Make sure you got your readers' notes ready.
Let me just put on the glasses.
There we go. I feel like I can engage with you much more convincingly now.
I'm fairly sure I had a serious point to make, but anyway.
Go on.
As a dyslexic person, I find AI just the basic chat GPT.
ChatGPT.
Easy for you to say. Could I borrow your teeth again? really, really, really helpful for just the most simplest of tasks for that are involved in HR, such as writing a job description, writing a job advert. And as long as you keep the human element and don't try and take that away, you know, actually for a lot of disabled people or whatever it is, I think it can be really, really helpful. I heard that it can also prioritise your emails. So if you've been in meetings back to back all day, you can actually prioritise your emails and actually help you with your list of things to do to make sure that people's priorities are right.
I think that's great.
Those sorts of things, I'm like, wow.
No, but your point on the dyslexic point, my husband's quite severely dyslexic, and he, like you, uses ChatGPT. It's giving him real confidence in his communication at work, which is quite interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've just dropped him in it there now. But everyone's thinking, oh my God, those emails from him are so brilliant.
Don't share the name.
I'm not going to tell you what he's called, but you'll probably be able to see on LinkedIn. I tell you what, were you going to say something?
No.
So I've been involved with a business called Be Yourself at Work, which was a really interesting concept, and it was a profiling tool, but ultimately what you came at the end of the assessment or the profiling process was a really clear card about who you were. So it was really going back to our point on, you know, everybody deserves to have a really unique employee experience. It really helped that. So it would say that I'm kind, I am motivated by results, and it would have different layers, almost like an onion, of, you know, these are your core values. But what was really interesting, the guy that I know who's involved with the business, who's a friend of mine, said that when and he's really senior, he's really well known, when he goes to see clients, he uses this card as a way of displaying and saying, this is me. And it's really powerful. It's not like, these are my skills, these are my technical capabilities, this is me. What he's now doing with Microsoft in high volume organizations, so say for example a customer help desk or a customer service function, they are using AI, but they are using the I am card to then personalize the AI in the interests of the person providing that service. So it's actually much more, so that's
And that
clever.
was going to be my point really, because AI is actually only as good as the instruction that the human gives it. Otherwise, all you're doing is pumping out the same as everyone else can do. And actually being able to dictate what you need from it is the point. And I think the biggest thing is about not losing, particularly in HR, the human intervention and actually use your people and the skill that they have to focus on the people piece of the work, and then underpin that for the kind of tasks that you can.
That can be automated and take the pain out of it.
And we're at risk. We can control this now and make sure that it's used in the right way, but I think we have to be very collective about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of CPOs and HR directors are really beating themselves up about not having an AI strategy. And the real big piece of advice I just give them is find out what your technology can do. Look at where your real time consuming tasks are. If you can use AI, then do, but don't worry about it, because just be kind to yourself, because
and
know
investigate
with it,
each tool very well, and then decide actually what you want your people to use it for, and instruct and train that as well.
But a lot of it's really interesting. A lot of the systems that HR, so if you look at your tech stack as a CPO or as an HR director, so you might have Workday. I remember, so I do also some work with a tool called Jaya. And
Can I just say on Workday, other tools are available?
They are. No, there's loads. And actually there's loads of really good tools out there.
They are really a lot less cheaper.
And for mid-tier businesses that haven't got £6 million to spend on a best-in-class system, it does the same thing. What is quite interesting though, a lot of these individual tech stacks are now actually applying and implementing AI in how their offer works. So Jaya, for example, part of the platform is you can write development, you can write your development journey, you can also write your personal development plan. It uses AI to help the individual create really smart objectives. Now I really liked that because I thought that's clever. But I agree with you. I think the whole, we don't know what we don't know, but I was reading an article from McKinsey recently, and they said the kind of the two top things that HR functions and HR directors need to get their head around now is being more human as an HR function, because obviously technology is on the up, which I thought was really interesting, and then also AI. But I think if if the rest of the business are looking to the HR function to be the oracle on AI, I don't think that's realistic. I think every single leader has a a duty of care or a responsibility to get up to speed as things are changing, and it's changing so fast.
And where you need to be really aware, it's the protection for your business. So it's things around GDPR and how ChatGPT and things like that are not safe. So you need to be careful what personal data you're putting into that. So that's if you can get a policy around that is a top tip now before it starts exploding. And actually you've got, your LinkedIn licenses, all of your job tools have different elements of AI.
Yeah, they do.
And I know as an operational leader, I wouldn't want my recruiters to get them to write a job description and just use that as an advert.
No, it has to be checked.
It's got to have a human intervention. It's got to be well thought through.
I agree with you.
So, and I think that's the key bits. If you can do anything in HR, it's focus on what it does well, but also what your people need to do to kind of cushion all of that around.
And apply it in a way that reduces the low value added work to ultimately, because that's the main problem with HR. Everyone in HR is bogged down with operational stuff because that's just a reality of the job. Even in a best in class environment, there's some degree of operational requirements. But if you were to kind of take away a whole load of that work, and then it would then allow HR functions to be focusing on the client engagement, the strategy, all of the things that they get a bad rap for not having time to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, what's our advice on tech and AI?
I think get your head around it.
Yeah.
I think also be realistic about what information is available and how much you can possibly know at the moment because it's changing so quickly. But I think I would encourage all HR people to get in, look at what the AI capability is available in their tech stack. How is that going to benefit them and their customers?
And ask for help. Because if it's not your strength, and myself being a Luddite, get people around you who do enjoy this stuff and who can bring and know how to use it and allow it to then be integrated. But also it's about investment, and it's particularly for medium-sized businesses, the amount of time that is generally wasted when actually there's a real business case behind it. Just be very cognizant and don't fall into that trap, or else you will get left behind.
And I think my top tip is you are not behind at the moment with specifically, put my teeth in now, around AI. So don't rush your strategy, investigate every tool, make sure you are making decisions and training your business on how you want it to be used to be safe.
Yeah, and actually, what do we do when we have a problem in an organisation strategically? We bring in an independent specialist. I think for me, I'd be open about where I was on my own journey as a CPO. And I'd be like, right, I'm going to bring someone in to help us curate the strategy,
100%.
to look at how AI in our business can actually work, where we are now, where we want to get to, and have a plan around it, but actually engage someone that knows what they're doing.
Exactly that. Yeah, very good.
Oh.
Good. Well, that was
I needed to just...
You just needed a ding, didn't you? It's like, and finished.
We're being told off.
Thank you. Yeah, that closes today.
Can we
Thank
just,
you for the,
We've got to do that,
And
haven't
that's
we?
good night
It's
from
good night
me.
from me, good night from her.
Good night.